Welcome, everybody. We are so happy you are here. We are welcoming you to the Grief Ladies launch, Handling the Harder Days in Grief. We know that grief is not easy. This is something I'm sure many of you don't want to have to come to a group like this, but we're really grateful to be able to offer this to you. So we are excited to be able to introduce you to Karyn and I and to what the Grief Ladies is all about. So I am Kelly Doherty.
And I'm Karyn Arnold.
And so, just a little bit of background information about who we are and how we came together and how we became the Grief Ladies. So, a few years ago, I had been in a collaborative book and wrote a chapter in it and kind of caught the bug of wanting to continue writing. But I was a little nervous to do it on my own. So, I decided to partner with Brave Healer Productions and launch a grief book, The Grief Experience Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection. And so part of my job as the lead author was I had to recruit 24 authors for it. And unfortunately, I knew a lot of people that they would tell you I twisted their arm into doing it. And then I put some things out on social media. And Karyn will say that she had just happened to join a Facebook group just probably the day before almost. And I shared about being part of this grief book. And so she reached out to me and we just clicked. Karyn and I both have hospice experience, and I think that alone probably is what we connected so well on. And we also just have a shared grief philosophy, I think, and look at grief similar, and also like to also, sometimes grief is hard and it's difficult, but we also like to sometimes keep it a little light and sometimes laugh and be able to share positive things as well. And so we became connected. We started doing things together and we're like, what can we do? And so we have lots of ideas that you'll hear more about today, but we decided to launch The Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next. And Karyn, in a few minutes, will share more about what that actually means. But that's how we got started. So just a little bit of background about myself. I am a clinical social worker. I live in upstate New York, north of Albany. I have a private practice where I specialize in working with children and adults that have experienced grief and loss. I'm a fellow in thalassology. Nobody knows what that is, but it's the study of death, dying, and bereavement. And I'm also a board certified coach. And my mom died when I was 14 years old. And so, because of that, I met an amazing social worker at the local hospice and joined a teen group, and that changed my life. I walked into that room, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in my grief. And after doing some work with her and another family therapist, I started volunteering with the children's programs. And at 16 years old, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And so I went and got my master's in social work and worked at a couple of different hospices. I've done a few different things in my career. And then in 2017, made the shift to private practice to primarily focus on grief and loss because it is truly my passion. And I am so grateful and honored to be here today, to be able to talk with all of you, and to be a support to you on your grief journey.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and thank you everybody for being here. So I'm Karyn, and as Kelly said, we connected through the grief experience, which was just a really wonderful thing to come out of that book experience. And we did find that we had a lot of our own commonalities and connections. I think one of those is just feeling the pull and the calling toward this grief work. And this is something that I think we are both very passionate about. I think we both really love this work and really care so deeply about the people that we work with. And what I've always said when people ask me about what I do, and you can imagine sometimes you get some looks from people when you say you do grief work, but I feel like this work is all about love, where it feels like sometimes you're talking to people about sad stories. What I say is that every day I get to hear about love and the love that people, have shared with the people in their lives. And I feel really fortunate to be a part of that. So I am from Pennsylvania, Bucks County, a little north of Philadelphia, and been doing this work for about 25 years. I started out in psychology, gerontology. I was actually, Kelly and I's stories differ this way, where I was just sort of asked to do a bereavement group in my 20s. And I was like, okay. And just really at that time fell in love with the work. Since that time have had a significant number of losses in my life as well. And so I think Kelly and I do try to bring our professional and personal experience into everything that we do. And we're just really excited about putting this together for you today. So we've got a lot to share.
So, Karyn, will you want to tell us a little bit about what the Grief Ladies is all about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that we had talked about this, Kelly, like sort of, because we both doing this work, we've also had a lot of people that we've worked with, and there's a lot that we have been a part of. And I kind of felt like I was hearing a lot people saying, well, there's no map, there's no guide, there's nothing anybody can tell you to do. And I think at points I've even kind of felt like, well, yes, of course, that's very true. We know that this is a very unique experience, and there's a lot of different factors that are going to contribute to the reasons why it's going to be different for everybody. But that being said, Kelly and I also agreed that, like, but we're saying a lot of the same stuff to different people, like in our groups and individually. And we started to feel like, but there are things that you can do. There are actionable steps. We are talking about this every day, all day, with the work that we're doing. So I think we try to take a really practical, direct approach, and we want it to be on that forward movement. As I always say to people, you come into your groups, into these settings with what's happened, where you are, and then that big question is, where do you go from here? And I think that's what we are trying to do, is to sort of help and lead and guide the way, with steps that can actually make a difference, something you feel like you can do. The other part of it too is that moving forward can feel sort of scary for people. Even the idea and the language around that can sort of, make people bristle a little bit sometimes. So as I always say, like, time is moving forward. That's where it's pulling us anyway. So we do move forward with it. But one thing that's really important to us is to make sure that we're helping you figure out how to maintain connections and feel like you are bringing your loved one with you, and keeping those connections. Ultimately, we're wanting to move from grieving with pain to grieving with love, and seeing if there's ways that we can help you do that. And Kelly, I know a big goal for you with the people you work with is to also help celebrate their life. In the early days, which can be a very long time, there's so much focus on the loss and how it happened. And it can feel like in the beginning that we kind of are out of touch with the memories and, who this person was and all the memories that we have and the things that we did together. So we're trying to help bring some of that back too. But there's a lot of ways to do that. So what do you think, Kelly? What would be a best way to describe that?
Well, I think for me, it was a big shift that happened in my grief experience. And it was focusing on all that my mom missed out on and all that I missed out on having her in my life. And thinking of like focusing on she didn't get to meet my husband. She never got to meet her grandchildren. And it was so much like on what didn't happen. And one day, I'm actually writing a chapter about this in a book coming out in a few months. And my husband asked me to write a letter to my mom. And I was like, I've done this how many times throughout my life? And something shifted for me in that letter. And I went from focusing on what was lost to what I gained. And the fact really to gratitude, being grateful that I did get to have my mom for 14 years and all that she taught me in her life, but also in her death. I've learned so much about who I am in my own grief experience and even learned about her and who the kind of person she was. And so it made this big shift for me to remember the life and the love and the connection that still remains rather than what was lost. And our brains are like Velcro to the bad, right? So we love to get focused on the ending, especially if the death was traumatic. Not everybody has a peaceful ending, right? And so sometimes our brains are like Velcro to that bad, and that's what we focus on. And so, really, my goal, I think, with my clients, and I know it's not always about me, but I do believe that this is important, is to help my clients be able to shift from focusing on the death to remembering the life. And
Mhm.
being grateful for that connection, being grateful for that love, and still feeling it. I can still feel that connection to now both of my parents that have died.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important part of it because, the idea of moving forward, if we don't have that, feels really daunting.
Absolutely. So we're here to give you a bit of a guide. a guide to what comes next. But we, as Karen mentioned, we do believe that there are things that help people on the grief experience. And we know everybody's grief is going to be very different and unique. But we also know that there is a bit of some things that are going to help. And so we've created this, and as you can see, this is our framework, which is based on the word grief: grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding. And so it's a bit of a map or a guide for you to follow. And so we're going to be talking about this framework. It's what we talk about in our podcast and our other ventures, but this is kind of, I think, a great visual representation to show, there's going to be ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Grief isn't neat, it isn't orderly, it isn't always predictable. But we are going to try to give you a bit of a roadmap to follow to be able to help you. And so we are talking again about this framework. And so we call these different letters of the word grief, we call them trail markers. So we know for hiking, we're going out for a walk, right? There's different trail markers along the way. And so we felt like this was a great representation as well to call them trail markers. So the first one is grounding. And grounding is about really focusing on some basics, getting back to the basics, because we know foundationally, if we're not sleeping, eating, and moving our bodies, everything is going to feel so much harder and more difficult. So we're really starting with the basics here. And then we move into rebuilding. Rebuilding is about creating structure and routine. And sometimes things can feel so overwhelming, especially in the early days, early months, that we are like, oh, I don't even know if I could do anything. And sometimes it's just about making small steps, small movements, and creating some sort of routine to be able to accomplish something, but also to get you through the days. Then the third letter, or third trail marker, is interacting. And this is, I think, one that could go on and on and on and on because there's so much here. And this is about communication and relationships. And we know that our relationships in grief change. We have expectations about how other people are going to show up for us. And sometimes we get let down and disappointed. And then there's other people that show up and they surprise us, and we're really grateful for them. So, but it's about how do we communicate what we need? How do we communicate with others about what grief is like for us? And how do we keep our relationships? Some may change. And then our next trail marker is evolving. Evolving is dealing with, as we like to call, the roadblocks. These can be more of the difficult emotions like anger, guilt, fears, and they can kind of get us stuck. And so we're talking about how to navigate those, and also how do we navigate the changes that we may feel in our own self-esteem as we're grieving. I hear a lot of times people feel like, I don't know who I am right now. And, I used to be so confident and so positive, and now I don't feel that way anymore. And then our final trail marker is finding. And finding is a bit of it's like, how do we find meaning in our grief, but also how do we stay connected to our loved one, and also what's next? What's next for us? Who are we now? And so that is our framework there, and we're going to be spending some more time going through each letter of this today to give you some ideas on things to help you on those harder days.
Yeah, so that takes us right into it. We wanted to, in addition to introducing ourselves and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing, we really wanted to give you something that you could start with right away, that you could be using. Today's program, our special presentation, is handling the harder days in grief. As I always say to people, every day in grief can be hard, but we know that there are some days that either are harder or we're anticipating being harder. Maybe we're dreading, we're worried about. Certainly, we're mindful of when we're meeting here and the proximity to the holidays, but we know that these can be a lot of different days. We'll talk about what that is. We're also going to talk about how you can use that grief framework to prepare for some of the challenging dates, some ways to plan, balance, care for yourself. And, we do already have the chat open. So if there's any questions about this program, about us, general grief questions, you can add them to the chat because we're able to access that later. You can also email us. We'll be giving you lots of information about how to stay in touch. But we love to hear from you. And certainly Kelly and I both recognize that so much of the work we do is based on what we hear from you and, and the feedback that we get. Okay, so as we were saying before, any day in grief could be described as a hard day, but there are days that you may be worried about and thinking, how am I going to get through it? As we said, the holidays that are coming up, but we can also be talking about birthdays. It can be your birthday, their birthday, your children's birthday. There can be anniversaries, which could be, sometimes that's going to be a wedding anniversary, a dating anniversary. There's a lot of dates that become significant: family, religious holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, the anniversary of their loss. What I say to people, though, that goes with that too, is sort of your own personal grief dates. There may be the day that they got their diagnosis, the day they went into the hospital. People become very aware, like, this is the last day that I saw them or got to talk to them, or this is the last time they came to my house. These dates really become sort of woven into our lives, and we know they're coming. And so these are things that we do the first year, things that we do the second year, knowing that those change with each time. So what we're trying to do is to help figure out, how do we get through the harder days?
Yeah, and I think even adding in, like, sometimes what I hear a lot of people say is, my loved one died on a Tuesday or the second of the month, right? And then every Tuesday can be a harder day, or
Mm-hmm.
every second of the month, when that comes around, it's that reminder, right? So that could be another harder day. I think we always tend to assume that it's going to be the death anniversary or the birthday. And so some days can just kind of throw us off and surprise us that, whoa, this is a really hard day, and why?
Right.
And so hopefully giving you some tools and resources to be able to support you on those harder days. So now we're going to be going into a little bit more about each of the letters of the framework. And so, as I mentioned, we're looking at the first letter in our trail marker, which is G for grounding. And again, it is starting with the basics. We know that if our sleep is off, everything is off. If we don't sleep well at night, the next day we might be more irritable. We might be, not able to focus as well. Everything can just feel off. And so we know when we're grieving, it can be really challenging. Some of us find that we're sleeping too much. Some of us find that we have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, or both, right? You might wake up in the middle of the night and you start ruminating and start thinking about the coulda, woulda, shouldas. And so we know that with sleep, we do have to create some routines. We need to be able to create a sanctuary for our bedroom. We need to do some things as far as getting prepared to go to bed, having some sort of, maybe, okay, I'm going to go to bed every night at this time, and maybe I'm going to have a nice cup of tea before I do that, or read a book, or turn off my phone. So thinking about what are those things that you need to do to kind of help with your sleep. And I know easier said than done. We are not minimizing how difficult sleep can be when we're grieving, but there is some practical steps and tools that we can take when we need to focus on our sleep. We also have to look at nutrition. It's so interesting. Some of us want to, like, eat a lot. Like, I share often, after my dad died, I'm gluten free, but after he died, it was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't get enough gluten. And I was like, I was going down a slippery slope there. Because there's a reason I'm gluten free. But but then some of us don't want to eat at all after our loved one dies, right? And sometimes we talk about comfort food, but sometimes comfort food doesn't make us so comfortable. And so again, if we're not eating, we're not getting proper nutrition, that's also going to impact our mood, and it's also going to impact our energy levels. And these are some of the things that we need to be mindful of. And then movement. We do need to move our bodies. There's some really great research out on movement. I'm not going to get on my soapbox about this too much, because I do have a running program that I do with grieving women. And so I know how beneficial it can be for them. But even just going for a 20-minute walk really can be helpful. It can reset that nervous system, release some tension, help ground you, help you be more mindful. And so these tools, grounding, is about taking care of your energy, because we know grief is exhausting, right? You can sleep 12 great hours and still wake up exhausted. And I think most people don't understand how exhausting grief is until they've been through it. It is something that really can't be explained well, I think, to somebody who has not experienced it. And some days we just need to be kind to ourselves and treat it like a sick day. And some days we're not going to get out of bed, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think really it's about, a lot of times when we've had a significant loss, we feel really powerless. We feel like we've lost control of everything. And I think the reason why we like to think about these, the grounding, the sleep, the nutrition, it feels like something that I can try to work on, something I could do something with. I just worked with a person this week, and we work together weekly in the past couple weeks. They haven't been sleeping very well. And then this week I was like, oh, I'm actually doing a little bit better. I'm doing okay. And then I was like, well, how's your sleeping? You know what? My sleep has been a lot better too. It's like, okay, well, there's that correlation, between those two things. So these are things we would definitely be suggesting all the time. But as we are talking about harder days today, how these can help you when you are in that anticipation mode. Again, trying to think about the things that we can't control. What are things that we can do? So even going to bed a little bit earlier, or, planning for a nap on a certain day that you anticipate to be a harder day. These are all some things that you can do to help.
And our next trail marker is rebuilding. And this really comes down to about creating structure and routine, recognizing that there's going to be these days that are harder than others, and there might be times of the day that is harder than others. We were talking about this prior to coming on, and Karyn mentioned, sometimes if you're really exhausted and you take a 3 o'clock nap every day, right? And then Thanksgiving's coming up and your family's having their meal at 3 p.m. It's gonna might feel like I don't know how am I gonna do this, right? There is sometimes that our structure and routine can be thrown off on some of these harder days, and it is about kind of making a plan for yourself. What do you want to do on these harder days? Do you want to take the day off? I'll share last week was the anniversary of my dad's death. I took the week off from work. I knew that I needed that time and that space as a grief counselor, right? I needed to be able to take my own advice that I give to my clients and do what I needed to do for myself. And so for me, it was taking the day off. For other people, it might be working because you want to stay busy and distracted. Do you want to be alone? Do you want to be with other people? Do you want to visit the cemetery or not? Some people find a lot of comfort in that. Some people don't. So it is about kind of thinking about what is your plan going to be? What are some routines and some structure that you can put in for that day? Is it getting together with a certain person? Is it saying, you know what, I'm not going to spend any time with anybody and I'm going to veg out and watch Netflix? As Karyn always says, sometimes it's about setting the intention that that's what you're going to do so you can cut yourself a little bit of slack and not feel so bad that you've spent all day in your pajamas watching Netflix.
Yeah, and rebuilding is going to be something that we would suggest you're doing at any point, creating that structure and routine. But again, these special harder days, these occasions can come along and create different expectations. They may involve other people. Like there could be times with the holidays that we find maybe we had a little bit of a routine going. And as Kelly said, that like that 3 o'clock time is so tough for me. And now I have to be with a whole bunch of people. There's an expectation for me to be socializing at that time. So we do, like to suggest that you have a plan, whether it's the harder days, the holidays, and realizing that you're kind of creating your own user manual through all of this, which we have here at the bottom. We'll talk about in a minute what that is.
So our next trail marker is interacting. So it's about relationships, right? Communicating with others, managing others' expectations. And we know when we're grieving, a lot of people have opinions of what they think we should or shouldn't be doing, right? Our friends, our family, oh, you just need to do this, right? And one of the things I always say in my grief groups is like, we're not going to be giving advice unless it's asked for, because in our society, everybody loves to tell us what we're doing. So when it comes to interacting on these harder days, sometimes you have to set some boundaries. You need to know what you want to do, right? So once you've made that plan, letting other people know what your plan is. And you can always change that plan. You may wake up that day and be like, nope, I don't want to do that at all. But I think sometimes giving some advice, or it's not advice, but communicating with your friends and family about what your plan is and what you may need that day could be very helpful. And if they do, I love this. Manage those advice givers. I appreciate the idea, but I'm going to give whatever it is this try this year, right? And so you have to find what works for you. And also, if you're if it was a family member who died, your other family members are also maybe struggling on some of those harder days, and everybody grieves so differently. And so it's about how do you navigate those situations where everybody is grieving differently, and how they may want to do this. They may want to go have that balloon release where you just want to stay in bed all day, or they want to go and release some of the ashes. So it's about how do you manage those different dynamics, find what's right for you, maybe set boundaries and say, you know what, I can't do that this year or right now. I love adding the words right now in here. It doesn't mean that next year you might not be able to do that, but right now you don't want to.
Yeah, this is definitely a case where you want to take, the one day at a time, but also the 1 year at a time, because I think we start to think about traditions and how I'm going to be managing this and doing this going forward. We really just need to focus on how I'm going to get through this year. How am I going to get through today? The family thing that you mentioned, Kelly, is really important. And I think always really important to emphasize, because it's a surprise maybe, and sometimes a disappointment. We feel like our family, hey, they're going through it too. There's this shared grief experience. But truly, I think what it comes down to is that everybody has a different relationship with that same person. That day-to-day impact, maybe this is a person you talked to every day, where your sibling only talked to them once a month, or you had a family member who lived with the person, or you shared space. Like all of these things, there could be complicated relationships, there can be different expectations. So, a lot of these harder days kind of make us think that we should be spending time with family, reaching out to family, but that can complicate things. So we really just want you to be realistic, give yourself space to grieve the way you need to, let them do what they need to do. And maybe even if you're able to kind of have those conversations that, like, listen, it sounds like you want to have a big group. I'm feeling like I need a little bit more quiet. And see if we can give ourselves permission to do what we each need to do.
Yeah. And I always like to tell my clients, especially in some of these harder days, it's not even taking it day by day. Sometimes it's just minute by minute.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I think we need to just be mindful of that, because sometimes even just thinking about the full day can be just so overwhelming. So just minute by minute. Our next trail marker is evolving, and this is dealing with what we like to call the ugly emotions, or those roadblocks. And sometimes when we have these harder days, they can trigger some of these most difficult emotions, like anger, guilt, fear, resentment, envy, right? And anger that maybe how they died, or anger that other people haven't shown up for you the way you expect them to. Maybe you're angry at the person for their choices that have maybe led to their death. It is not uncommon sometimes to have anger at a lot of different people, including the person who died. Or there's the guilt, right? The coulda, woulda, shouldas. Should I be going to work? What if, is that wrong for me? Should I be doing more? Should I be having this big event? And then we go into self-esteem. You may feel like, who am I? How do I start over? I don't even know who I am anymore. That's what I hear so many times. Yesterday, I had somebody say, my friend told me she doesn't even know who I am anymore. Right. And hearing that, how hard that was for her, she's like, well, yeah, I know. That's the way I feel too. Like, I don't know who I am anymore. And it can make us feel like we have gone backwards, and we are not the same person. And it can really impact our self-esteem in a negative way. And we also need to know that harder days might need more space, or we might need to create more something to do on those days. But we can also be grateful at the same time. Grief and gratitude can definitely coexist, and I don't think we always talk about that enough. But we can be sad on one hand so that they're not here and that we're having to deal with a harder day like this, and also be grateful that we did have them in our lives. So remember, no bad day or days can erase all the hard work you've done. Just because if you feel like you've taken a few steps backward, doesn't mean you're not still how many steps forward.
Yeah. And I really do want to just highlight that last part too, Kelly, because I think a lot of times as we are approaching a harder day, the birthday, the anniversary, the holidays, especially if you are a little bit further along, whatever that may be, it can be kind of scary, frustrating, because you may feel like I was starting to get a little energy back. I was starting to participated in a few things and now I'm withdrawing. Now I'm feeling really tired. And it's like, what's happening? I thought I was doing a little bit better. My sleep had been bad and got okay. And now it's getting bad again. So, just to know that that's not like a starting over. I see a lot of this as kind of like a chutes and ladders, maybe similar. Kelly, that's probably what our guide should look like, with you kind of go feel like we're going up and going down. That's just a part of this process and very normal for a lot of people.
And our final trail marker is finding and figuring out what's next, right? So what's next? Who am I now? And I'm seeing some people in the comments talking about that, is about that identity. Who am I now and who am I going to be? And I personally believe we are constantly evolving and changing. I'm that's not the same person I was 5 years ago, and I'm hopefully not going to be the same person in 5 years from now. But it does question, it makes us look at things differently. It can sometimes shatter our assumptions about the world, about our view of other people, about life and death. It can really make us question things. And so I think when we're talking about the harder days, it's really trying to figure out, how are you going to get through it? What is the best way? What are the things that you need to get through it? So if it feels like doing a tribute or a memorial, will be too much, don't do it. Karyn, I'll share, a couple of weeks ago, I shared with Karyn what I wanted to do on my dad's anniversary, and I wanted to go to the hospice house and bring some donuts to the hospice staff. And Karyn's like, Kelly, you don't have to do that if you don't feel up to it. And so when we spoke the other day, she's like, so did you do it? And I did, because I felt like I wanted to, but it was like a last minute decision, to be completely honest, because I wasn't sure. I wanted to see how I felt that day and if I felt like I could do that. And I'm grateful I did. But, it's next year I might be like, nope, I am not doing that. So maybe it's a portion of the day is about focusing on them, and maybe the rest of the day is focusing on you and doing some self-care for you. Maybe it's going to getting a massage or going for, get your nails done. I know other people have gone to the hospitals and brought food for staff or other patients. There's things that you can do, but I don't want you to feel pressured that you have to do something.
Yeah.
So fine, and I think also this day can be a bit of a, like, how do you stay connected to them? What does that look like? Is it meaning you looking through pictures of them? Does it, you want to listen to some of those old voicemails you have saved, or do you not want to at all? So again, I wish we could easily say this is what you should do, but you are the best person to be able to answer that, because as Karyn said, you have your own relationship with that person. Your grief is unique, and we need to find what works best for you. And so we also talk about the majority, I think, of my clients, not all, but the majority of them find leading up to the day is sometimes worse than the actual day. The day comes and they're like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Some people will be like, no, that's not me. And I understand. But I think it's probably like 95% of my clients would say leading up to the day is worse. And then some of us have what I call the grief hangover. And it's because the day is over. Maybe you're disappointed because people didn't reach out or they didn't remember. Maybe it's because you had so much anticipation and so many big feelings leading up to this day, and then the day's over and it's like, oh, or it's just, it hits you even more. Especially, I think sometimes as you get through that first year and then you're in that second year and you're like, now this is a reality. This is my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the hard part is they keep doing it, be doing it and having to do it again and going through the holidays and going through different, harder days. And I think that's what we really want in terms of, right. You're right, Kelly, like in terms of, can we tell you exactly what is going to be the right tribute for someone? No, but what we are trying to say is not to put that pressure on it. I do hear people doing that, like, they're trying to find that thing that they can do that's going to really show how much they love that person, how much they miss them, what's going to be just the right thing that sort of embodies who they are and what our relationship is and all of those things. And it's like, wow, that's really hard to find something that fits that. One of my favorite stories about this, and some people have heard this, Kelly, I probably have told you, I had a woman that I worked with whose husband had died. and it was the night before his birthday. And she went to the local bakery and said, what cakes do you have here for birthdays tomorrow? And she paid for all of them in honor of her husband's birthday. And it was very kind of last minute. The day itself came, and I think she just kind of took it easy, but she just wanted to do something little spontaneous, whatever it may be. The biggest thing about harder days is you getting through it. Do try to remember how much we are trying to stay connected, how we are trying to feel that love and that loyalty, but do try to remember that you are the one here trying to get through it. And that's a really difficult thing to be doing and to have to do.
So obviously, we're talking about harder days in general, but we are doing this about a week before Thanksgiving here in the United States. And so we are in the holiday season. You can't walk even into the grocery store without being reminded. And as Karyn and I have talked a lot about, I think the holiday season feels like it starts in September now, right?
Yeah.
Halloween can also be a big trigger for a lot of people and can be a harder day. So we added some slides in here because we can't go through and do a presentation a week before Thanksgiving without acknowledging that we're also dealing with the holiday season as well, not just the harder days. And so I've done this for years, is creating a bill of rights with my grieving clients, is what are the rights, what are the things that you need? And you have that right. And I've done this with kids and teens and adults. And so we built this holiday bill of rights based on our framework and showing you that you do have the right to take care of yourself, to change traditions if you need to this year. You also have a decision, a choice to say, I'm going to try again next year, or this year I'm not going to do it at all. I had a friend earlier say last year she put up a smaller tree because she just didn't feel like it. And she said, I looked at that smaller tree at Christmas and it was so depressing. She's like, I'm not doing that again this year. I'm putting the bigger tree up because I know it's going to make me happy. And so sometimes we make decisions and we can always try again next year. And, it's also okay to have the right to experience some joy during the holiday season. If that does happen, that's okay as well. I know there's a lot of discussion sometimes that, it's okay not to feel okay, and absolutely, but it's also okay to have moments where you do feel okay and not to beat yourself up about that. It really all comes down to self-compassion and being kind to yourself and just giving yourself what you need. So you do have the right to enjoy, to laugh, to smile, to remember the good moments with your loved one. And you also have the right to say, I'm going to try again next year if that feels right.
Okay, so some self-care that's really important. And again, we'll talk about the holidays, but hopefully this is something that you can be thinking about the other days that you need it for. I mean, let's face it, we talk about the holidays, and I feel like, I don't know, Kelly, if you noticed this, like with doing this work for a long time, the holidays really were always like the cold month holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's. But now I find it's like, in talking to people, that really does feel all year round. You've got Mother's Day and Father's Day. 4th of July can be really hard for people. We've got religious holidays, so many things. It does make it feel like you don't get a chance to sort of catch your breath. So for this set of holidays, for right now, where we are today, having, you'll see how often we use the word plan, because it's just that important to be mindful and to be thinking about it. We just don't want to do that thing where we're like, all right, I'm just going to kind of pretend it's not happening and just hope I get myself through it. You can always change a plan. You can always be adaptable. I try to say to people, if you say yes, like with an asterisk, like, yes, I'll come, and then asterisk if I feel like it, if I feel up to it, if I have the energy that day. I know that we are used to being reliable and dependable and doing what everybody else wants us to do. And I think Kelly and I are always trying to really give people permission through validating what a difficult process this is, so that you're like, yeah, I am really going through a hard time. I do need a little bit of grace right now, and I need to give that for myself. So these are some questions, things that you can think about, things that feel different this year, traditions that maybe you do want to keep, but maybe some things that you want to change. Sometimes people find if they're doing things exactly the way they always have it, maybe feels like it creates a greater contrast, where some people are really comfortable with the familiar. Some of that may be trial and error, trying to figure some of that out, but trying to really think about what is going to change. We have here, what do you want to change? Maybe we need to be asking, what don't you want to change? What are the things you're like, this, I'm doing this, I'm going to try it and I'll see if I can get through it. Maybe it's baking cookies or something like that. But if there's anything that can make the holidays feel more manageable to you, it's really important. Is there a way to be including your loved one? We've been sharing some of our own personal grief experiences. For me, at Christmas, I have a tiny little candle. And there, by the way, there was no forethought in any of this. It's just Christmas morning. I realized, my stepdad had died. I wanted to have something. I grabbed a candle. I think it was one of the ones I have under the bathroom sink in case we lose the power. Got that out, lit it, and I had his little prayer card from his service, and I put that up. And now I was like, oh, I like that. And I kept that going in the kitchen, and I do that every year now. So it doesn't always have to be, like we said, a big plan, but just knowing that we want to, be feeling connected. So if you can do anything, if they become overwhelming, taking a time out, going into another room. I say to people all the time, drive yourself if you can, go late, leave early, have an exit plan. Know that there may be things that you feel like you have to go to, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay if it's feeling like too much. And kind of like that Bill of Rights, that permission slip, if you could write that for yourself, what would that say? And what would you do for yourself there? Okay, so there's so much here. And, we're hoping that in recording this, that you'll get an opportunity to be revisiting some of it because it's a lot to cover. But we really want you to feel like you have at least some tools, a couple of tools to start with today. But these harder days are inevitable in grief. Sometimes it can feel like you are barely getting a chance to regroup, and then another holiday or harder day is happening. You don't have to navigate it blindly. You have the grief framework. It's for every day. It's for harder days. The grounding keeps your energy stable. We want to recognize your energy is not bottomless. There's not an endless supply of it. It's a limited. It's very taxed when you are grieving. So you need to really preserve it, protect it. The things that we talk about in grounding, good sleep, nutrition, movement. This isn't like it was before. This isn't about getting ready for bathing suit season or something. This is about like fuel and taking care of yourself. You need this energy to get through this. The rebuilding structure, some predictability, something that we need and that we lose in grief. Interacting, trying to figure out, I don't know, I find in a lot of my groups, people I talk to, we were talking about the challenges of family, friends, other people who just don't seem to understand. So we're trying to figure out ways how to navigate that. Evolving gives you tools to deal with the anger, guilt, envy, the thing that hits at your self-worth and self-esteem. And it's really important to find what is going to help you through that next part of this. We've had a lot of people on here talking about identity and questions and the changes with our role. So the hard days, they do come. You don't have to face them empty-handed. And as Kelly and I always like to say, we also want you to stop and acknowledge when you're on the other side of them, because you are proving to yourself every day that you are making it. Doesn't always feel like it. It's not always pretty, but every day behind you, you have survived so far. And we want to stop and acknowledge that, to kind of remind ourselves and give ourselves that hope for the future that we can keep doing this. Okay. So we had mentioned before about the user manual. So this is something I've talked to people about for a long time, and it's sort of from year to year. So if you are in your first year, and we probably have a mix here of people, some that are maybe just in that very first year, some who may be further along, wherever you are, this can certainly apply. We want you to understand that you are basically helping yourself try to figure out what to do next. We know that as we are guiding you, we can try and help give you some steps, but it will be your experiences from one day and set of holidays and harder days to the next that's going to help you figure out how to get through it. So we are sending home with everybody who came today this take home activity, creating your own user manual. I think actually, Kelly, turned out really well. It's 9 pages, and we're helping you identify what your harder days are, because it's not, again, always what we necessarily think. We're going to show you how to use the framework by answering some questions to make a plan for the days that you're trying to get through. We're also going to talk about a plan after, because here's the thing, there's all this buildup and then there's that grief hangover, like Kelly said. Really important to try and put some time in for yourself afterwards to try and figure out, what do I want to do? You know, if we are still going over to an in-law's house or somebody's house or someplace where we feel like, oh, this is going to be so hard, trying to put a plan in place for after. And then we do also have some space for reflection. You are going to be your best teacher. You are the expert on your own grief. You are the one that understands best what you need and what you don't need. It may not always feel like that, but that's why we want to kind of use this opportunity to write out some things so that you can help yourself in the future too. The reason why I like this, Kelly, I know a lot of times I'll talk to people in the second year and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to go through my dad's birthday again, and I don't know what to do. And I'll say to them, well, what did you do last year? And a lot of times they'll say, I don't remember. I have no idea. I don't know what I did the first year. That first year can be such a blur, such a fog. So if you're kind of starting this now or whenever you're starting it, but this is just going to help you for the future to be like, yeah, I took the day off. That was good. You know, or I did spend time with my friends, or, you know, whatever it may be. So that will be the intention of the user manual. We'd love to hear your feedback on it. We're hoping it'll be something really helpful for you.
So we also know that this was a very brief presentation that we offered. And so we developed a workshop series that we do have for sale. And since this is something new, we're creating a founding member price. So if you register by December 1st, there is a discounted price. This is a 5-part package where we go over each letter of our trail marker in more detail to give you some more resources. We really dive more into each of these trail markers in depth. Each video is probably about 45 minutes to an hour long. And for those of you that do buy by December 1st, we are offering a free group, Grief Ladies Reflections and Connections, on Tuesday, January 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. So if you do register for this workshop series by December 1st, again, you will get access to that group to be able to come together and join us and know that, you know, be able to talk some more. Obviously, this was too big of a group for us to be able to talk and answer questions. So this is that opportunity for people to come together, to know that you're not alone in this grief journey, and be able to be supported by other people. We know that this is hard. We know that this is very difficult, and want you to make sure that you have the support and the tools and the resources to be able to help you. And in our workshop series, this is what is included. It is step-by-step exercises. We're going to really be talking about each of those trail markers in detail. We're going to be giving you some exercises that work, some self-compassion, talking about how can you channel your grief, and also just talk about how our identity does change, how grief does impact us. And it is available for purchase right now on our Grief Ladies website. And there is a QR code there that you can scan, so you can go right to it to purchase it. And again, it is on sale for $127 until December 1st.
Okay, we do have a podcast. We actually started this, I guess, Kelly, did we go live back in October?
October 1st.
Yeah. So been going with this for about 6 weeks now. So the podcast, new episodes come out every Wednesday. You can find it on all the major platforms. We also record it as a video too. Some people like to watch them on YouTube. So you have a lot of different options. Each episode follows the grief framework, where we go from one different step to the next to try and use these different trail markers to help explain a lot of different parts of grief grief. Right now, we're very much in the holidays that we're talking about very specific things that can help you get through that time. And I know, Kelly, you've been getting a lot of feedback on that, people finding it helpful. This is something Kelly and I both really enjoy getting a chance to do. So yeah, we're going to be doing the holidays through January, and then we do have a lot of guests who will be coming in from a whole different variety of backgrounds. And, again, always exploring that topic of grief and trying to cover the things that we think are going to be most beneficial to you just from the conversations we have with people over the years.
Yeah, so have a listen to the podcast. There's, I think, 8 episodes out so far. You can watch.
Well, Kelly, I think you just froze up here a minute. There you are.
Froze there for a minute. So, Karyn,
Yes.
what is next for us?
Well, I think we're both, something we've been working on for some time now. We have been writing a book, The Grief Lady's Guide to What Comes Next. It's going to be a book and a workbook that goes along with that. And we do intend to have some smaller books that will follow up. Lots of future programs, different publications, things that we're going to be doing, and more talks like this, frankly. We hope to have more opportunities to be gathering people and coming together to talk on all the different topics of grief. There's so much. It's really, really layered. There's who you lost. There's how it happened. It's, the different circumstances, all the emotions that go through it. We really do try to cover it all. It's a really difficult topic, and there's so much that goes along with it. So we always want to make sure that we are trying to cover everything. And as we said from before, we'll show you here how to reach us, and you can send us anything that you'd like to hear more about.
So what are the next steps? You will be getting an email with a video of today's presentation, along with the way to download the take-home activity, creating your user manual. You can check out our website and sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on all of our upcoming podcasts, also our book in the future. We also have a Grief Ladies community on Facebook. It is not just for ladies, also men are invited as well. And it is a private Facebook group. So it is an opportunity to come together. I know we have people from all over the world on this call. So this is a great opportunity to connect with other people who are grieving. We provide tools, and in there each week we ask different questions for engagement. So that is a free group. You can join us. We would love to have you. And if you're interested in more of what we've talked about today, check out our workshop series, our video series, which is now for sale.
Yeah, and what's nice about the community is that it's a way for us to stay engaged. We've had people write questions on there and reach out there, and we do try to be really responsive to people, through the Facebook page. There's so many ways to do this. That's what I say. The more support, the better, wherever you can get it. And we're just trying to reach you with whatever makes the most sense, for you and where your life is right now.
And we just want to thank you for being a part of this, for showing up today. We know this is not anything anyone wants to have to come to. I always say in my grief groups that this is not a group that anyone wants to have to be a part of, but we're here. So it's about learning how to live with their grief and being supported and knowing that you're not alone. There's so many people out there that are grieving as well. And if we can just be a support to you and help you on your grief journey, that's what Karyn and I are most passionate about. And so thank you. We hope that you found some positive things. You can use the guide and really make a plan for those harder days. And we wish you a peaceful holiday season.
Thank you, Kelly. And thank you to everybody. We really do appreciate it. And we appreciate the feedback and the questions that we've gotten. We're going to try to address everything that we can. And don't let this be the last time that we're in touch with each other. As I said, through the Facebook community, through the website. I mean, there's lots of different ways to reach us. And, I sign up all my emails the same way. I'm here to help. That's what we're here to do. So thank you, everybody.